Good morning to those in North America, and good afternoon to those in Europe tuning in today. My name is Allison Slack, and I'm with FuzeHub. I'm the manager for manufacturing-related strategic initiatives. FuzeHub is a not-for-profit organization that connects New York State's small and mid-sized manufacturing companies to the resources, programs, and expertise they need for technology commercialization, innovation, and business growth. What we do is we help companies navigate New York's robust network of industry experts at different university research centers, economic development organizations, our manufacturing extension partnership centers, and other assets. We are in fact the statewide New York Manufacturing Extension Partnership. That's a federally and state-funded program in the United States, and it's supported by Empire State Development's Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation. So we're hosting this webinar today. Today we're here to learn about the power of transatlantic supply chain connections in advanced electronics industries. We're hoping that those tuning in today will want to become engaged in an initiative we have to make business-to-business connections among advanced electronic clusters across Europe and North America. And this is going to be the first in a series of webinars. Today you'll learn who some of these players are, but future FuzeHub webinars on this topic will focus on specific applications of advanced electronics, from autonomous operations to smart cities, to medical devices, to health applications. Now we're doing this because FuzeHub is a partner of the New York Loves Nanotech Consortium. That's a group of organizations and companies who have joined forces really to promote New York and all that the state has to offer to high-tech industries. For nearly 20 years, New York Loves Nanotech has had a relationship with the industry cluster organizations comprising Silicon Europe, and those represent over 3,000 member companies in Europe, primarily small and mid-sized enterprises. On this webinar, you're going to learn about these groups' activities to support and promote companies in the advanced electronics ecosystem on a global level, and you'll hear from companies that have leveraged these relationships. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our next presenter, Lamar Hill of Fusion Market Group, to talk about our transatlantic initiative.
Good day, everyone. I've been involved in advanced electronics, growing a cluster here in North America for the last 21 years. And during that course of time, we've developed close relationships with many of the clusters, advanced electronic clusters in Europe. So that's really what we're here to talk about. And in fact, how those clusters in Europe and here in North America can help accelerate commercialization of technology for small, medium-sized enterprises. So moving forward, really you're looking at a network in Europe and in the US to support your expansion needs, both in North America and Europe. We're service-oriented, all of our organizations are service-oriented to support this industrial growth. We can make intros to venture capital and private equity. We can introduce you to government grants and programs, help you network into those. We can connect to R&D assets. Here in North America, we have a vital group of probably 50 universities that focus around doing research and education supporting advanced electronics. Just here in upstate or in New York alone, we have 12 or 13 major R&D universities that support this industry and graduate 50,000 STEM workers a year. We also help facilitate joint ventures. We have law firms that are quite familiar with advanced electronics and can enable that process. We also can help establish representative networks. So if you're moving into the US, we can connect you to possible reps in the Northeast, Midwest, West Coast, Southwest, etc. And if you're moving, expanding in Europe, same thing goes for all of our 12 Silicon Europe partners, which one of the next speakers will talk a little bit more about. We also are very heavily involved in supporting workforce education. As you know, in the advanced electronics industry, your talent is your biggest resource. And so we understand that. We're trying to encourage and broaden the pipeline of STEM educated professionals, but we also understand that this industry operates globally, and so we also emphasize cultural and diversity programs. Finally, we organize workshops such as this one. We have live meetings a couple times a year. I know Silicon Europe also has partnerships with Taiwan and other emerging advanced electronic clusters in Asia, so it's really a global effort. Looking at North America, we are located in upstate New York in the Northeast United States. However, we have connections to advanced electronic clusters across North America. Now, I would say this, that in general, our clusters in North America are pretty organic. In other words, there's not necessarily a driving organization that organizes the clusters. We do that here in upstate New York, but generally across the North America, that's not so much the case. However, we certainly, if we think it's a good idea for you to be here, if you're thinking about expanding in North America, but with that said, if there's other reasons that you need to grow and start your effort in another region of North America, we can certainly help make those connections. Whether it's in greater Boston or upstate New York or Quebec or Austin, Dallas, Texas cluster, Phoenix, Arizona, Boise, Idaho, Silicon Valley, Portland, Oregon, all those are vital advanced electronic clusters. In fact, there's more, but those are the primary ones. So we can certainly act, if you're a European company wanting to get more involved in North America, we can help facilitate that growth. We are focused around advanced electronics. That's a very broad area. It's nearly $2 trillion, represents nearly $2 trillion of economic impact. And we especially focus on sort of the guts of advanced electronics. In other words, semiconductor related thin film technologies. And some of the primary applications that these support are traditional and mobile computing, which is still a vital arena. And in fact, less than half the world's population is really truly computerized. So there's still a lot of potential growth there. And all that feeds cloud computing, as all of us want to be more mobile, but we want to have access to every information source there is. If you're having a diverse discussion with a group of people, you're probably on your mobile phone searching Google as the discussion is progressing to make sure that you're providing factual information. Also, smart cities, smart everything, smart homes, smart regions, smart grid, all those arenas are driven by advanced electronics, security, autonomous vehicles and operations. Hopefully, I drove around for 3 hours yesterday. I could have been working if I only had an autonomous vehicle. Also, new computing paradigms, quantum and cognitive computing are emerging. Artificial intelligence is enabling automation. And finally, wearable medical devices. And I'm sure all of you could come up with a couple more. So just to wrap up, I did want to talk a little bit about upcoming activities. First of all, we had our first Cross-Atlantic Business Connection Forum last fall at SUNY Polytechnic in Albany, a $20 billion R&D center. The second Business Connection Forum is scheduled in conjunction with Semicon Europa, which is on November 12th to the 15th in Munich, Germany. We'll provide details on that soon. Additional Business Connection Forum advanced electronic webinars. We plan on having one on medical devices in July 26th. We plan on having one around smart cities and smart organizations, Thursday, September 13th. And finally, our fourth webinar for the year will be October 18th on energy systems. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Allison. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamar. Next presenter we have is David Rooney from the Center for Economic Growth, located here in Albany, New York, just like FuzeHub is, a longstanding partner of ours. And David's going to introduce you to some of the materials they use to talk about what New York State can offer high-tech industries and resources for companies.
Good day, everyone. A pleasure to be here. Allison, thank you for coordinating and pulling this event together for us. Really appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what our activities and our efforts have been regarding advanced electronics here in upstate New York. So just a little bit of context for you. Lamar showed you that big map of North America. I'm bringing it down a little bit to the northeast of the U.S. Albany is in the center of that map, as you can sense, and that's our region. It's an 8-county region. About 3 hours north of New York City, 3 hours west of Boston, 3 hours south of Montreal. So it's conveniently and centrally located in the northeast U.S. with good market access. And in that blue shaded area, there are about 1 million residents in that 8-county region that forms what we call Tech Valley and the capital region around New York, Albany being the capital of New York State. So with that, just a bit about who we are as an organization. The Center for Economic Growth is a private, not-for-profit organization set up about 30 years ago to focus on bringing a private sector approach to economic development and trying to change the economic trajectory of this region. As I said, about 30 years ago we were formed. We now have nearly 250 plus investors from both the public and the private sector, all of whose success is based on the success of the region. CEG has sister organizations like it all across the nation and certainly all across upstate New York, and I'll be speaking a little bit to those partner organizations in a few moments. Our focus is in really 4 areas, as I've noted here. We attract technology-based investment. We help existing companies to be globally competitive. We support and develop and support a startup and entrepreneurial ecosystem, of which FuzeHub is a critical partner for us here within this region. And as Lamar had noted, we try and ensure that we have a competitive, skilled, and a ready workforce, whether that's a pipeline that starts with young people during their education, or whether it's trying to re-educate existing workers for new opportunities in technology and technology companies. So I mentioned what our focus is, at least on the investment side in particular, is in 5 cluster areas. Today we're talking about advanced electronics and advanced manufacturing, but we also focus in on clean tech and renewables, biotech and life sciences, logistics and IT and gaming. All of these have impact from the advanced electronics area. All of them are growing and global, and all of them are really focused and benefit from the R&D capacity that we have as a region, which is a really important, we believe, differentiator for us as a region. So how do we do this? And I'll focus on the 2 distinct areas, on the industry attraction side, and then on the business growth services, how we provide services to our existing companies side. Allison and Lamar mentioned the New York Loves Nanotech initiative. That initiative is itself more than 20 years old now. It really leveraged the I Love New York brand, which is a global brand for tourism. We took it and applied it to, in this case, the semiconductor and advanced electronics industry, and have been able to gain traction and awareness, we think, globally because of that strong brand with I Love New York. How do we do this in terms of our strategy and our tactics? You may well have seen us or worked with us or talked with us at industry trade shows and conferences around the world, whether it's at SEMI events or other events in the advanced electronics space. Here locally, we work with site selection professionals, corporate real estate professionals. We invite them to come here to the region and see the companies, the R&D, and the sites that we have as a host region. We go out and speak with all the leading companies in the supply chain as well as in the device manufacturers, and we have those conversations globally. We work obviously through events like this one and use all of the available social media and advertising tools that we can, and we get involved in industry and collaborations and partnerships all of which are important to us as an organization and important to the region. And clearly this ability to work and host some of our partner groups from around the world, the folks from Silicon Saxony, as an example, have traveled to this region on many occasions. The same with the groups from CEA Leti and groups from Taiwan and China as well. So we've had a chance to work with our global partners and then to work with partners here across upstate New York who have capabilities and want to pursue further investment in advanced electronics. On the business growth services side, as I mentioned, there were two sides that we focus on as an organization. Here, we are, Alice had mentioned that FuzeHub is the statewide manufacturing extension partnership program center. We are the center here for that 8-county region that I shared with you at the top of the slides. We provide a whole suite of services to those companies who are looking to grow their businesses here locally and also perhaps pursue national and international markets. We support together with our colleges, universities, and our incubator systems and venture systems, how can we commercialize new technology coming out of our R&D and our university centers. As I mentioned, we provide support through helping them to identify new sites and new funding streams, but also to incubate new ideas into commercially viable opportunities. And there are a number of resources throughout New York State that we think are critical to growing the advanced electronics ecosystem and other cluster areas that I mentioned earlier. And among them are NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which has a whole host of programs and initiatives and funding streams that can support development for new companies, but also can support development particularly in the renewable space. And hopefully we'll get a chance at a future webinar to talk more about some of the specifics around our clean tech capabilities that might be of interest. And the New York Power Authority there's a potential there for low-cost power for companies who are looking to expand in New York State. That's another tool that we have in our toolbook. And also the Centers for Advanced Technology, the CATS, located at various colleges and universities across New York, some of which Lamar mentioned earlier, are also available to provide support for R&D, for commercialization, and for workforce. I mentioned that research capacity. I won't read you all these pieces, but these are a whole host of the research capabilities. Lamar mentioned our SUNY Polytechnic Institute, the CNSE campus here in Albany. We have a significant global foundries presence, as you all may well be aware, both in their manufacturing at Fab 8 and their technology development center, and then significant resources through GE and some other companies in the life sciences space, all based here within this region and all providing a really important R&D capacity. It's a bit of an eye chart. You might want to take a look at it at your leisure, but it does give you a sense across upstate New York of the types of assets that we have here in the academic and R&D space. At the bottom, you'll note many of the leading academic institutions in the advanced electronics arena that have that have campuses here in upstate New York. Those are all partners of ours and participants at one time or other in our New York Club's Nanotech initiative. So we think it's a robust and a dynamic set of institutions and assets that would be made available to you and to other companies who may be looking at upstate as a potential location for a facility or for partnerships as you look at the U.S. Same is true on the industry side. Again, here's a whole host of assets and companies we have who have operations here and in upstate New York. We think we've got a strong case to be made for the existing cluster in the supply chain and would likely be able to identify partners and opportunities for our companies looking in new markets and new companies looking at this as a jumping off point for the U.S. Across the bottom, you'll see 3 large sites that are under development now, and others are available as well that have potential for significant semiconductor and other advanced electronics manufacturing and the clustering of supply chain and other assets around those major sites. I won't go into this. Again, this is just a set of some of the infrastructure capabilities we have as a region, all based on really our function as the state capital in New York and our function as a kind of a proximate market to most of the Northeast U.S. And finally, I just wanted to touch on here the types of emerging opportunities we see within this region, but we also see across much of upstate New York. Again, a lot of this is based off of our R&D capacity, but we think there are opportunities, again, across all of that corridor from New York all the way, or from Albany all the way across to Buffalo. Medical devices, pharma, analytics and population health, materials research, I mentioned SUNY Poly, and some of the renewable energy ventures and the tools that we have that can support them. So it's a broad range of market opportunities. We'd love to work with you to explore your interests and where there might be opportunities to connect you with the appropriate assets here in the region. And we look forward to seeing you at future events as we continue to move forward with our Near Close Nanotech initiative. With that, Allison, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, David. Before we move on, I want to do a small housekeeping note. There is a questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. You can shoot us some questions if you'd like to have any of our panelists field them today, and we should have time for at least a couple of those at the end. From Lamar and David, you got a flavor of what's available in the Northeast U.S. in terms of R&D capabilities, and these organizations are really connection points for any companies seeking technology resources in these spaces, as is FuzeHub. Over on the other side of the ocean, the advanced electronics industries in Europe have a very interesting and powerful framework. They've organized themselves into a group called Silicon Europe, and today we have with us the chairman of Silicon Europe, Frank Bosenberg.
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to present Silicon Europe, our alliance here. So in the next 10 slides, I will give you a short overview on who we are, what we do, and how we could work together potentially. So next slide, please. So in fact, we are a combination of 12 different clusters. I will come to that in a minute. And our main objective is to foster cooperation and innovation across all Europe, helping first and foremost our members to accelerate their R&D and business connections. And towards the European Commission and also towards the outside world, we are focusing on representing our SMEs, our small and medium-sized enterprises. You will see that the organizations that form the alliance represent not only SMEs, but also large companies and research institutes. But we made the experience that they are much more than SMEs able to represent themselves. So we can give access, but we do not claim to represent them. Our ultimate goal is, beside making Europe as easy as the domestic market for our companies, also to act as a one-stop shop for non-European partners, aiming to cooperate with our members. We know that Europe is complex. It's complex even being a European, and it's much more complex if you look at it from the outside world. So yeah, we want to be this one-stop shop for partners also from the US. Next slide, please. So as I already mentioned, we are composed by 12 cluster partners. Contrary to the US, all of those cluster partners are pretty formalized. So there's always a legal entity behind with some staff members as well. So it's not only a dropping of brands, but it's really 12 different teams, each composed of at least 5 employees, that helps the regional communities and that then cooperates in the Silicon Europe framework. We cover fields such as micro nanoelectronics, photonics, ICT, and software. So the interpretation of silicon in Silicon Europe is pretty much as in Silicon Valley, where no one would question that, for instance, also software comes from there, not only hardware, not only microelectronic production. As the logos are not that known worldwide, the next map will be more helpful. Next slide. As there, our cluster members are mapped to a European map. So you see that we have quite a coverage in Europe. So Central and Western and Southern Europe is quite well covered by us or by our members. All relevant micro nano electronic hotspots are covered. Admittedly, we do not have any members in Northern Europe, so around the former Nokia hotspot, nor in Eastern Europe, where there is the respective industry growing, but not yet that organized as it is in the areas covered. So the main spots are even cities, can even be broken down to cities. So we have Dresden, we have Grenoble, we have Leuven, we have Villach. Mostly you will find any major big fab or any head basement of a larger company in these hotspots. So together, as Alison already mentioned, we have more than 2,500 members, so real companies, but also research institutes from in total 9 countries, which employ more than 400,000 people. Next slide, please. As I already told you, cluster organizations are composed by different types of members. Majority being SMEs, that's why we are here for. But if you are looking for access to our research centers, Fraunhofer in Germany, CAA, Leti, IMEC in Belgium, Tyndall in Ireland, we have also very, very good access points to them. And the same holds true for the large companies that are based in our cluster organizations, let it be Bosch, Infineon, Philips, SAP, ASML. It's really more providing access points to these large companies than really representing those companies, but we know that it's difficult to find the right entry point into these large accounts. So that's where we can help. Next slide, please. What do? We foster the cross-fertilization between our ecosystems. So first mission is to enhance cooperation between the European partners, mainly by events. So all of us do events already, and we open them to the European partners, but of course also to international partners. On European level, we also form R&D consortia in the framework of a huge funding program, 80 billion funding program by the European Commission. From time to time, there are also opportunities for non-European partners to participate in these kind of projects. So it's really our job to form consortia there, and yeah, we have a quite good overview about upcoming ideas, and if they are open to non-European partners, it's also a possible entry point. One precise example of what we did last year, next slide please, is an event format called Open Innovation Day, where we collect the competences that are available and support big accounts then. In that case, it was Thales. So Thales made their innovation requests or innovation roadmap open to us, and we spreaded this information to our SMEs, leading to a final one-day event where all the SMEs and also startups that are not always on the radar of the innovation departments of big companies could show up, could show their contribution to the innovation roadmap. Thales did a selection, and in total there were 55 B2B meetings between young and innovative companies, all of them being SMEs, and 20 Thales representatives. Next slide. The main action of Silicon Europe outside Europe took place under a sub-brand of Silicon Europe Worldwide. We had 2 main markets so far. First Taiwan and second US, where we did respective events, including setting up booths at major fairs, where then our members are represented. And for instance, we also had a meeting with FuzeHub and with New York Loves Nanotech last year at the Semicon Europe for fostering our US outreach activities. And this brings me already to my almost last slide. Next slide, please. In asking what can Silicon Europe do for you. We offer access to Europe's top public and private research institutes and companies in innovative electronics, whether it's the large account or the small SMEs in top-class expertise in most advanced technologies. We have a Europe-wide, at least almost Europe-wide network allowing access to all of these players. And yeah, we aim to be the one-stop shop for finding technological partnerships, mainly by the organization of events. So we are in fact very much event-driven, at least under the brand name of Silicon Europe. The more precise the requests are, also by single companies, the earlier we will hand over to single cluster partners. But we are pretty confident that as Silicon Europe, we are pretty much able to answer almost all requests that come in. Yeah, last but not least, our contact data. So we are organized in a very democratic way. We have a changing board every 3 years. So next slide, please. For this year, I'm the chairman. And we have 2 vice chairs from other European countries that will become chairman next year and the year after. So the 3 of us will be the board for the next 3 years, or now 2.5 years. And we are more than happy to collaborate with any of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Frank. All right, we have one more presenter, Adam Stover from Edwards Vacuum. So this is one company that has leveraged some of these relationships in the past. By the way, our future webinars will be very company focused. We'll have probably 2 companies from North America, 2 companies from Europe presenting on specific technology topic areas in the future. So thank you, Adam, for being our first, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I want to thank you very much. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold real quick. There we go, much better. I want to thank everyone for the invite. Allison, Lamar, and Beth. And that's absolutely correct. And when Dave was giving his talk about all the opportunities in upstate New York, I was just nodding along. You couldn't see me, but I agreed with everything that he said. And Edwards has really gotten a lot out of partnering with New York universities and research foundations to drive some new technologies. And I'll be talking through some of that today, as well as some of our global presence. So we go to the next slide. You can skip this one too, sorry. So Edwards is a subfab solutions provider. So that includes things like vacuum pumps, abatement systems, and thermal management solutions, which most people just kind of call the heat tracing, for both HVM and R&D. And our product portfolio spans logic, memory, and DSL. And right now, we estimate we've got around 60% of the 300 millimeter pump and abatement market share. So we are quite a large company. I believe we had just over $2 billion in revenue last year. So we got here by being sophisticated and understanding our customers' needs, and we do that through chemistry and understanding the chemistry in the chamber, chemistry on the wafer. Because we need to understand what the customers need, both now and in the future. So whenever they're ready to launch a new technology, a new material, we have to have something ready for prime time to enable their innovation. And that's something that we kind of keep hammering home internally, is we need to make sure that we're ready to enable people's innovation. And we do that through our applications team, of which I'm a part. I'm an applications manager. We are the in-house process experts. We want to reduce the total cost of ownership for all of our customers, maximize their uptime, and deliver maximum value. We basically want to be invisible to the customers. We don't want them to know that we're there, right? We want everything to work as it should be. The vacuum pumps, the abatement systems, and the heat traces, and we want to be a solutions provider. So if you go to the next slide. So we've got So this is the Edwards, New York footprint, and we've really leveraged a lot of New York. So the red circle is Niagara, which is our U.S. headquarters. We have approximately, I think, 200 engineers in Niagara that they do design work for integrated systems. They do power relays for us. So there's a lot of just activity going on in Niagara, and our customer center is based in Niagara. The blue circles are basically our customer sites. So the one on the left is Panasonic, and the top off to the right, we've got GlobalFoundries Fab 8, we've got SUNY Poly CNSE, which is where I sit. We have an office about a mile from CNSE. There's another little red dot under the blue dot because we have an office in Albany. And then GlobalFoundries Fab 10 in Fishkill is the final blue dot in the bottom right. So we go to the next slide. I want to talk about SUNY Poly because this is just an awesome facility. We've gotten so much out of this. We work directly with OEMs and end users, Applied Materials, TEL, Lam. G450C is not on here because it's no longer in existence, but we leveraged the 450 program to develop 2 new technologies, a vibration monitor for our pumps to move from time-based maintenance to predictive-based maintenance and condition-based maintenance. That's always been something that's been elusive in the subfab, is moving away from a 3-month PM, 6-month PM, 1-year PM to actually doing maintenance when it's required based off the condition of the equipment. And that's really something that we've been able to look at with the 450 project, and we've taken a lot out of that. And the second thing is understanding if we can actively monitor the condition of the exhaust lines and the leak tightness, both for safety and then for reducing dilution requirements. And that's something that's a project that's been very fruitful for us as well. So we've really been able to leverage all of the technology and the partnerships at 450 and CNSE to really drive the next generation of products. And then as a part of that is the AMP Center. So if we go to the next slide, and this is an ongoing project that we've got with CNSE. So AMP stands for Advanced Manufacturing Performance, and it's centered around defect reduction for any advanced manufacturing process, but really we're talking about semiconductors. And this is supported both from the U.S. Department of Commerce and the Empire State Development Foundation through New York State. So there are 3 main foci of this program. We, Edwards, are the industry anchor for understanding the root cause and corrective actions for contamination. Specifically, we're looking at particles in the chamber, ways that we can reduce particle formation, or once the particles have been formed, are there ways that we can mitigate the particles, ways that we can get them out of the chamber? So we're going to be working both with benchtop laboratory equipment as well as on-tool experiments with CNSE. We're always trying to find additional collaborators. We think we found one company. We haven't agreed to anything yet, so I can't really give any details yet, but we are trying to find other companies on chamber that are also looking at these types of problems because we think there's a lot of synergy there. And Inficon is the industry anchor for real-time sensing and data analytics for process control. And we're also at the AMP Center is also looking at workforce development because we're generating all this technology, we're bringing in all these jobs, but we need to make sure that people are trained and ready to fill the roles that are being generated through all this activity. So that's being driven by CNSE naturally because they are an education foundation. But at the same time, they're asking us and Inficon, what types of skills do you need people to have so they can come into your organization and be successful right off the bat? So there's a very nice synergy going on between industry leading with the university for enhanced workforce development. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk through Edwards now globally, just so you can kind of get a feel for where, kind of how big we are, but at the same time, how focused we are in New York State, because we have factories and technology centers all over the world, but at the same time, we have a very large upstate New York footprint because of the unique resources available to us here. So our vacuum pumps are made in Korea at the Cheonan Center. Our turbo pumps are made in Japan in Yachio. We've got some abatement systems also made in Korea and China. And we have global technology centers for vacuum and abatement in the United Kingdom. And our abatement systems are made in the United Kingdom. So you can see that we've really spanned the globe for where we put our footprint, but at the same time, we are very focused on upstate New York. So I want to give one kind of tidbit of some other technology that we've got that we're launching right now, and it's being rolled out in South Korea. So if we go to the next slide. It's called Exceed. So it's corrosion resistant coatings for our pumps, for the rotors, shafts, and stators if necessary. The manufacturing process is very highly controlled. There are 19 stages. Each of them are controlled with Six Sigma processes. The CPKs are typically at least 1.33 for the key process control parameters, and the quality control is best in class. So this is something that Edwards, being a thought leader and a technology leader, is the only company right now with this particular type of coating. So the last two slides are just some photos from the factory. So you can go to the next slide, and you can see that everything is pristine. There are various individual baths for the rotors and stators to be dipped in, and everything is fully automated as well. There are various pH meters and chemical sensors integrated into each of the baths to make sure that each bath is within its standard tolerance. If we go to the next slide. Oh, this is the automated bath control that I was just talking about, and the chemical control systems and injections is all done automatically. And that's everything that I had. Thank you very much, Allison.
Thanks, Adam. Some great examples of transatlantic relationships or global relationships that Edwards has been able to leverage for their competitiveness. So glad to have you with us today to sort of illustrate how the strength of companies on both sides and relationships among them can strengthen clusters on both continents. So we have time for a few questions. Here we go. So this is all who you heard from today. And we received a few questions in the chat box. You probably have time to send in one or two more. First, we had a question, is IBM one of the companies involved?
This is Lamar Hill. Yeah, IBM has been involved in the New York Close Nanotech Initiative pretty much from day one, back in the early 2000s. Their involvement is so extensive and profound that I can't really go into too much detail on it, but they're very involved. We'll be out at SemiCon West, and a couple of our speakers in our half-day workshop will be IBM people. So yes, they're definitely involved.
I think, this is Dave, I think it's important to understand that really IBM was one of the primary drivers for the development of SUNY Poly that Adam just highlighted, SUNY Poly and the research capacity there, because they were looking for a public partner to help them on the R&D side. So it was really IBM's interest in having a partner in New York State that was an important driver into the development of SUNY Poly and the campus in Albany in total.
Sure, and this is Lamar again. We could go back even farther. If you could make a case for who started the advanced electronics industry, IBM would certainly be one of the primary drivers of that. So for 50 years, they've been doing advanced electronics, primarily in New York.
Okay, thanks. We had another question about whether these groups are involved in representing photonics, and I think we want to talk a little bit about the US side, but this person also wanted to know which cluster represents photonics in Europe. So Frank, stand by for that, please. But on the US side, certainly SUNY Polytechnic Institute is a leader in integrated photonics. It's in fact leading one of the federally funded Manufacturing USA Institute on the manufacturing of integrated photonics. That's between Albany and also Rochester, which many people on this webinar may know that Rochester's legacy of optics and related industries, imaging, are now being leveraged toward new developments in integrated photonics. Anything to add to that before I turn it over to Frank? Frank,
Yes.
would you like to talk about which clusters in Europe particularly represent photonics?
Yes, I can tell for sure from Silicon Europe. So in Silicon Europe, we ourselves, as Silicon Saxony, have a certain part of photonics. I know that Minalogic, the French cluster in Grenoble, has quite a strong photonics part. But beyond that, there are other organizations. In Germany, for instance, there's a strong photonics cluster around Jena, which is not part of the Silicon Europe Alliance, but we have connections to them. And for all this kind of questions, I want to signpost to a platform. In fact, it's called European Cluster Collaboration Platform. The domain is www.clustercollaboration.eu, and you will find the perfect mapping there to various criteria, which gives a precise overview. All profiles are checked, so that's a very good source of information. For Silicon Europe, again, it's Minalogic France and Dresden, Silicon Saxony, Germany, that cover photonics. But for other European clusters, I would relate to the Cluster Collaboration Platform.
Okay, thanks for that. We have a question for Adam Stover. Does Edwards work with, and this is a list of European R&D consortia, IMEC, CEA, LETI, and the Fraunhofer Institutes? Can you speak to any of that?
Well, I know that we definitely work with IMEC and the Fraunhofer Institutes. What was the second one?
CEA, LETI.
Yeah, it's in Grenoble.
I believe so. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know that we work a lot with IMEC and Fraunhofer.
Okay.
And I can find out on the other one.
And this was not so much a question, but wanted to share a comment from Alan Ray of Alfred University, which is home to some advanced ceramics R&D, who says he's on the technical committee of INEMI, INEMI.org, which has a European office in Ireland and many European industry and academic partners. So just a nice example again of people in New York State and Europe leveraging each other's expertise. Beth, is that all we have for questions?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm just going to say a couple more words about FuzeHub. Again, if you are a New York State manufacturer or know a New York State manufacturer that's in need of technology solutions of any kind, we serve as a one-stop shop. If that person goes to www.fuzehub.com, there's a simple request form that starts a conversation, and we essentially serve as a triage to, we make it our business to know what the expertise and capabilities and equipment are at the various universities and other organizations around New York State in particular, and we're pleased to assist in that way. Our team of manufacturing experts does that. And coming up, I mentioned that we have 3 more webinars scheduled. The next one will be on the intersection of advanced electronics and medical devices. And again, we'll have a series of companies present. The third webinar will be on September 13th regarding smart cities and advanced electronics. And the one after that will be October 18th concerning advanced electronics and energy systems. So if you go to the website that you used to register for this webinar, and here's the URL, you'll see the information for those, and registration for them is not yet live, but will be sometime next week. That's also where you will find the slides from today. And see. I want to leave up here, as we close the webinar, our panelists' contact information.
We should also mention that we are planning a live Business Connection Forum meeting on Monday, November 12th in Munich, Germany. That's associated with Electronica and Semicon Europe are going on the same week. The place and the agenda will be announced within the next month or so. Thank you.
And one last thing, Allison, I do want to mention before any of those upcoming events, we will be out at Semicon West. Our New York team and New York Loves Nanotech will be at Semicon West, and we want to cordially invite all of you on the call who are going to be in San Francisco that week to join us on the Wednesday evening for our annual dessert reception. For 20 years, we've been bringing together several hundred industry leaders just to enjoy each other's presence, talk a bit about business, and have a little bit of dessert on that Wednesday evening. So stop by our location at Semicon West and see us, and we'll get you more details about that dessert reception.
If you have questions about any of those events, or you're going to be at them and want to link up with us, please send any of us an email. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at the next webinar on medical devices and advanced electronics shortly. Thank you so much.